welcome to the first official episode of The Crucial Truth. This is your host, Alan Cole. Um, you know what? Let me just jump right into it. First off, I apologize. Putting together these videos are a little bit more complicated, and life just kind of gets in the way. That's not an excuse. However, I'm on top of things now. So, with that being said, we have a few questions that people have submitted, and some curious questions. Some people want to know a little bit more about C3 Comics and about us. So let's jump off to the first question. First question is, what books do you guys publish? I can honestly say I didn't know whether this was someone trolling or because how did you find out about us if you don't know what we publish? But I mean, that might just be me being a jerk. So, to run down the list, we published Intrepid. That's actually our flagship title. We're currently on issue number 8, being done by the wonderful Bruno Lima. He's really bought. Whereas Montos was the first artist on the book. He did essentially the entire Heroes and Villains run, which is issues 1 through 6. His style was very eclectic, really dark blacks, and it matched with the action perfectly. We learned a lot by working with Montos, since that was our first official publication. Now, Bruno, on the other hand, Bruno's style is very clean, very polished, and it really plays itself up in issues 7 and 8. And it's because there are a lot of sit-down scenes, there's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of just character interaction, but not necessarily action. But I have seen some of his action pages, and it's not to take anything away from what Montos did, but Bruno's style does carry over very cleanly when it transitions from talking and just regular character interaction to character interaction when it's a lot of action going on within the panel. So I'm very pleased with what he's bringing to the table, and he's taking Intrepid to that next level of production. So hopefully people will jump on, since Intrepid really is the introduction to our comic universe, which is called the Second Wave Universe. Little known fact. Everyone is pretty much aware of Marvel's Civil War, the whole idea about behind it. Now, Civil War came out roughly about 2006, 2007, I believe. Heroes and Villains, or the Intrepid story, the beginning of our Second Wave universe, is essentially the Civil War story. However, we copyright our story back in 2005. And I would honestly say I think it's a little bit more put together, simply because it focuses on one character, but it's a broader conspiracy that encompasses the entire universe. And I believe Jose actually spoke to that in his last video, Jose's Crisis Corner, about the Second Wave Initiative, when he spoke about Celia. So I think that the divide between the heroes, the choice that they were put into, or the choice that they were given, is a little bit more defined than what Marvel did with their Civil War. However, Marvel didn't really have to do but so much, because pretty much you had the heroes versus the heroes, and their heroes are way more popular than our heroes are. However, if given a chance, I think that people will kind of choose to pick sides about what this is, because that's essentially what the whole Pandora's Cage arc is. Pandora's Cage is a superhero maxi prison where people that did not comply with the Paranormal Registration Act, which was the official decree from the government, that if you were a superhero or you were just running around saving people, uh, you had X amount of time to actually register with the government. If you didn't, you would be hunted, and you would be hunted by those that you had just called your friend if they had registered. Um, and of course, a lot of people did not take it seriously. A lot of kids didn't take it seriously, and the thing is that they were looking at this as a felony. So you were getting sentenced, a maximum sentence. So they didn't. They kind of threw out some constitutional rights that citizens have. So if you were, let's say, 12, and you were running around doing your superhero thing, and you got caught after the Paranormal Protection Act, yes, if you were caught after that passed, say a week later, you were indefinitely jailed. So, and it didn't matter whether you were a good guy, whether you were a bad guy, you were jailed indiscriminately, and you were withheld, and you were powers quarantined, everything. So you have to imagine some people are going to be that are going to play a role in the Pandora's Cage arc that's coming up now. They've been incarcerated 12, 13, 14, 15 since they were 20 years old. And so people that went in heroes may not actually come out as heroes, but then some might. You'd have to actually read the story to see what we're doing with that. But this is the official opening of our universe. This is the expansion of our universe. And with that expansion, we go into Shonen Double Feature. Shonen Double Feature, as Jose spoke about in his Crisis Corner video, is our homage to the Marvel team-up books and the Shonen Jump, which is prevalent in Japan. Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, they're all part of, and other mangas, they're all part of the same weekly book that comes out. And so that's how, it's not just you're getting one, you're getting all of these different features. So you're actually growing the base, which is a cool thing. So what we did was we chose to go the opposite route of Intrepid, which is dealing with the governmental issues. And we went with the conventional superhero. Our two protagonists would be Lightning Rod, the Defender of Crimson, and the Brooklyn Blur. And both of them are knowingly breaking the law. they are paranormals, and they feel that it is their duty to use what they've been gifted with to help those in need. They each have a strained and comical relationship with their local police force. But if they were to actually be captured, they would be sent off to the cage, hence Pandora's Cage. But you would have they represent, even though there's a serious undertone to the environment that they're being put in, they are both very fun stories to follow. They're relatively younger. I think unless I'm wrong, Blur might be 21, 22. Rod is probably somewhere around 16. Jose would of course correct me on that. So with these two books, you're actually getting an introduction to two different parts of the second wave universe. Now, the second wave universe is way more in depth than what we have now. And if you have seen some of the characters that we have, some of the character designs that we've launched in the Creating a World campaign on Facebook, you'll see that we have a lot of characters, and this is just pretty much like 25% of them. And a lot of those stories haven't come about yet. But one of our more famous characters would be Daystar. People are very inclined to ask, when is she going to show herself? When are we going to see her in action? What are her powers? And I'll leave that to Jose to explain. I do know that she is going to launch officially in Intrepid Black Sheep Blues, which is the story arc immediately following Pandora's Cage. And you'll actually start to see another corner of the second wave universe with her and the United Tribal Nations. In general, she is essentially she's our Wonder Woman mixed with Avatar. We've done a lot of research into native tribes, and think you'll be really happy with our interpretation of her and how she'll grow as a character and how she'll actually interact with other characters, with what her official duty is. So if you're a fan of Wonder Woman, I'm pretty sure that you'll be a fan of Daystar. Um, okay. Enough about the second wave universe. We can go on that for a long time, and I feel very uncomfortable talking about that in any depth without Jose and actually David as well. They have it's Jose's baby, and Dave, as well as I, have played an integral part in forming that universe. So we'll leave that for a later time. Now we're going to go into For Armageddon. That's our third publication. And so For Armageddon, not to get too much into it, because I think I have, I'm going to talk about that in probably episode number 3. Before Armageddon is essentially a story that follows the four horsemen. It follows Lucifer, it follows the Trinity, it follows Archangel Michael, Gabriel, the Trimare, Joshua, Lucifer's son, Cartagena, also Lucifer's son. It follows the creation of the universe, and they are caught in what is called the Armageddon. And the Armageddon is war games. It's war games amongst the demigods for the right to create. I don't really want to say too much more, but I can say that the tagline for the story is, you know their names, you know, the horsemen, Michael, Lucifer, the Trinity. You don't know the story. You don't know their story. And so I know that it has a lot of religious overtones to it. And people, by looking at it, may think that this is a Christian story. It really isn't. It has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. We do pull a lot from Christianity. We pull a lot from Roman mythology. We pull a lot from Indian mythology. we put a lot from anime, period. Just the whole function of the story. So there's nothing that you, I can guarantee you, there is nothing that you can guess where this story is going, and it's because honestly, like, we don't really know where the story is going. Well, we know where the story ends, but the journey to get there, every issue, each character is actually defining themselves in a new way. So as we've written the characters down, they have molded themselves into something different than what they were originally designed to be. And the greatest truth of that is probably the horsemen themselves. A while back, I had posted something on Instagram and on Facebook about how back in '97, this is how the horsemen looked, and right now, this is how the horsemen are. And that's because the horseman's story, Before Armageddon, was actually it was actually created back in 1997. We sat it on a shelf for a good 15 years, and just by chance, we started working on it again, for, you know, as a side project for another company, and we found the perfect partner in Arturo Palacio. He's the artist on the book. He is actually a co-owner of it, because he has fallen in love with the character. So anything artistically that you see outside of some of the character designs, he has done on his own. I mean, the things that he has turned in, we have given some feedback on the horsemen or the characters, period. Because we did have some early designs that we had kind of fallen in love with. But aside from that, I mean, some of those animals and creatures that he's throwing in there, I mean, they're just in there when he sends the pages in. So we're like, okay, I don't know what that is, and he's done designs. He's done character designs or costume designs where we have actually modified how the characters interact with each other, how they fight. Um, for instance, one of the more popular characters that in the story is Chaos, and Chaos has these shoulder blades that we. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." However, functionally, it doesn't make any sense, though. I mean, I know it is a comic book, but we have had those discussions with people where they'll be like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense. She'll stick herself in the head when she does this," or, how can she fight? Legitimate. I mean, it's a comic book, so things are supposed to be misproportioned, just to kind of look cool. However, it's not really a problem. And then, those are some of the same questions that we asked each other when we saw the design. So we loved it. Excuse me. So we stuck with it. And we modified the way that she fights in the story to match the design that Luis gave. And so Luis has done many, many, many of those costume designs, but we have actually modified the character down to their core because we love the design so much. I don't know if that's standard or whatnot. I know I'm not really a needy person. I'm not overly aggressive. I'm not going to be like, no, if it's not the way that I told you down to the T, then it's not happening. No. I love the interaction on all levels of creativity. I mean, everybody has something to offer, so we'll just go with it. It just so happens that a lot of Luis's stuff is really, really good, and it keeps him excited. It keeps us excited, and right now he's roughly about 2 days away from finishing For Armageddon number 46. So we have For Armageddon number 45, which is the last issue of the introductory arc, which is issue 50 down to issue 45. And yes, the story does count down. So once we get to issue 0, there'll be a surprise for what's going to happen, or how the story continues, or whether the story continues, or what happens with the characters. These are all questions, but everything is counting down to something. So if you get issue number 50, that's issue number 1, technically. I don't know. I will say, it has kind of putting us into a writing corner. So because since we created this story 20 years ago, and we didn't do anything with it for 15 years. Oh, because I didn't tell you that we actually lost the first 4 issues that we had written. So we're looking at roughly 150 some pages that we had written. Those were on like floppy disk and things that nobody uses that stuff. So between everybody just moving and life, it's gone somewhere. So I don't know. So we, I'm sorry, I forgot where I was with it. We'll get back to it at some point. It'll come back. It's called old guy brain fart. Okay, so our next publication is one of our proudest. It is called No One to Save. It is a standalone one-shot, has nothing to do with anything else, either the For Armageddon universe or the Second Wave universe. Nothing to do. It's just a one and done. It's drawn by the illustrious Bobby Lex, and he pretty much drew it all in ink, traditional art, in 2.5 months. So we're still doing some post-production things right now with it, because I've never dealt with traditional art. Everything has always been digital, so getting it to the printer and all that stuff's been very easy. So this is another area that we are learning on the fly how to really do. But everything is pretty much done. I've gone, instead of holding the book up, I've gone on and released it for PDF. So there still are some grid lines inside of it, at least for the next few days. But I'll replace all that. And we did print roughly about 20 copies. Well, about 25. I'm keeping 5. So there are 20 copies that we're going to have called the bootleg edition, which will still have the grid lines inside and everything. And those will be available for the first 20 people that that contribute to our Patreon campaign, become patrons for us, become our heroes. Um, but if some of you guys haven't seen some of the reviews or some of the fan reactions that we've gotten about No One to Save, it's an amazingly short story, but it's meant to be short. It's written in 4 acts, and it it's meant to question what it is to be a hero. It's meant to put a hero in a circumstance where there is no winning for him or for them. And it's really hard for me to talk about this book without actually giving it away. But the premise would actually, the idea behind it is the idea if you take any hero, it doesn't matter, Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, Captain America, and if they personally had a kid that wasn't part of the superhero bunch, so you can't use, Batman's legitimate kid, Damon Wayne and Dick Grayson, with Jason Todd, because he's trained them, so he's going to save them, but they're able to take care of themselves. But what if you have a baby girl or a baby boy, and they aren't trained as fighters or don't have powers or anything, and you have that kid, your kid, and you have someone else's kid, same situation, and you have to choose one. You have to choose one. There is no saving both, and just whatever the case is. Like, you have to save one. I'm thinking that as a person, you're going to naturally gravitate towards saving what you're closer to, who you're closer to. Not to say that that makes you a bad person or whatnot, but to me, it does kind of bring in what defines you as being a hero, because a hero is sacrificing yourself selfishly or unselfishly. So, yes, you have your person, your kid, but the other kid that's not yours, that you don't have a connection to. Yes, if your kid wasn't there, you would be a hero to that kid as well. But your kid is there, so that, of course, muddies the thought process. And to flip it around, if you were to sacrifice your kid for the kid that wasn't yours, how would that play itself out? How would that play itself out in your mind? How would those closest to you favor or view you? So you have the internal and the external, and it definitely, at least to me, it definitely is a conversation that's worth having. And so I've played around with certain elements of what it is to be a hero, and I've introduced, and I've put them in an unwinnable situation, and it goes through a spectrum of emotion for the book. So certain people like Act 1, hate Act 2. And they hate Act 2 because of the main character of the story. Other people love Act 4 because of a supporting character that's in Act 4 that you actually meet in Act 3. The best thing I can do is just say, go out and get it. It's a $2 PDF at Comic Central. It'll be available for print in about 2 weeks, and that'll be about $10, because it's 60 plus pages, 62, 64 pages. I can't remember at the moment. So there's some extra content in there that you won't find on the PDF. I enjoy it, and it is one of the things that we actually have wanted to institute for a while as being one and dones, because we have a few other stories that at least 3 off the top of my head that I know are standalones, and we can just get them done, and it's just something out there, and just like with No One to Save, there is something to say in it. It's not just like we're just throwing this out there, and no, there's something that we have to say about the superhero genre, or the craft or the industry. Like there's something into each one shot that we have planned. It just so happened that No One is Saved was the first one to be released. Um, yeah. Well, moving on. There'll be another video where we discuss No One is Saved a little bit more in depth in a few months. Once a few more people have gotten their hands on it, and it wouldn't be such a secret, I guess. Just I won't feel as bad. So that's all that we've done right now. So you have 8 issues of Intrepid. You have 2 issues, which are really 4 issues because it's 2 per issue of Shonen Double Feature, and then you have 4 Armageddon, which is 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, 45. So there's 6 issues of 4 Armageddon, plus there's a Never to Again Be Released prequel, which is 4 Armageddon number 51. So the only way you can get that now is also to become a patron to our campaign. And there's No One to Save. Now, moving forward, we do have a few other things. We do have a Chibi 4, which is a chibi version of 4 Armageddon, historical. That's going to be written by Douglas Pendleton. I like to call him Dougie P. Just rolls off the tongue a little easier. And Bobby Lex, once again, is going to take over the artistic duties. It's going to be done in the chibi style, or I believe probably the Teen Titan Go style. It really has nothing to do with the 4 Armageddon series outside of it shares characters. Hilarious. I cannot write comedy like that. Like any comedy that you get from me is very dark. Very, very dark. It is lacking on my part as a writer. It just doesn't flow with me. So I don't even try it. Doug, on the other hand, ow, like that. Like comedy gold. So that will actually be out in September, the first episode. Then there's Nectar of the Gods. Can't say anything about that just yet, but it's a good one. That's a maxi series too. Cursed Armor, which I can't really say anything too much about that either. However, under advisement, I am going to be doing a monthly or bi-weekly Cursed Armor production timeline video. So I'll keep people updated as I go on, as I get more and more into it. So right now I'm actually in the building phase. Trying to come up with names for characters, trying to come up with some situations. The story itself is plotted out on the main points, beginning, middle, end. Motivations for people that don't have names yet. But I think the only thing I can say about Cursed Armor at the moment that is succinct is that it is a combination of Lord of the Rings and Masters of the Universe. It's a fantastical undertaking. I can't say it's like nothing I've done before because 4 Armageddon shares some of the elements of it, but the fact that this is a magic based story, with all the trimmings that come with it. I believe that people that I've told it to, they like it, and by them liking it, they've gotten me more excited about actually doing it. And if I just can't wait. I just can't wait. Like the whole concept of Cursed Armor is I think people will really be able to get behind it if I can't think of what it would be similar to. Maybe the closest that I can think of might be Battle Chasers. Maybe some people from the 90s that read comics in the 90s. Battle Chasers, maybe Crimson. That might be the closest. So that might be the style, the kind of Joe Midori era style that I would be going for. So of course, I already have a couple of artists in mind that the style aren't Joe Midori era, but they're Joe Midori era-esque. So I don't know. I mean, that's a few months down the line. I think we'll start to get artistically into uh, the creative aspects of it artistically closer to December, January. So you'll probably start seeing some pictures released then, some character designs, some backgrounds, things like that. But it's I'm excited. I'm excited. If you're into MMORG games, RPG games, this is going to play perfectly into it. Oh, you know what? Something else that visually, that if you aren't a Battle Chasers fan or you don't remember Battle Chasers, um, um, the video game that Joe Madariera did. Man, I cannot think of it. The Horseman games, or Darksiders. There we go. That's kind of the bent that I'm going for. But for another time. And then there's going to be our first non-owned, our first creative IP that's not owned by C3, which is Fret. And I would dedicate an entire Crucial Truth to the artist and creator of Fret, which is once again Bobby Lax. That is scheduled to come out, the first volume, which will be issue 1 through 7. It will be released as a monthly, and then collected, of course. The issue number 1 will be launching this February. So that's an adventure. He has released previously 2 issues. Those are being redone to kind of showcase his more comfortable drawing style, I guess. But it's a very interesting concept that mixes a lot of elements of manga into an American visualization of, that doesn't even make any sense. He really likes manga, and he has fashioned it off of manga, but it doesn't look like manga. So it kind of fits into the whole American manga motif that we have here at C3 Comics. Like I said, there are a few other books, a few other projects that we have planned. Those are in pre development, where we just it's just something written down on a piece of paper, and that's on our screen, on our computer in a file somewhere. So I can probably, it may be about another 3-4 projects, but all of these things are kind of massive in scope. Nothing that can't be done simultaneously, but nothing worth getting into at the moment. So I think I've talked long enough for this question. I'll try to tone things down moving forward, but some of these questions are a little bit in depth, so hopefully I'm not boring people too much. Outside of that, we'll pick it up with question number 2 in a few moments.